At the beginning of the movie, Dawn and Sarah are in a car rushing Marie to the hospital because she's having trouble breathing. Unfortunately, Marie stops breathing while Sarah is holding her. Sarah becomes very scared and asks her father to drive faster. Dawn warns Sarah to be quiet when they arrive at the hospital. Marie is taken to the emergency room where the medical team tries their best to save her. However, all they see on the monitor is a flat line. The story jumps back to 20 years when Sarah and her sister Amy are having dinner with their parents, Dawn and Irene. Sarah had plans to go to a party after dinner, but when she asked her father, he refused and told her to go to her room. However, that night, Sarah sneaks out of her window and goes to the party with her boyfriend Chris. They dance together, and Chris later sings a song to express his love for her. Meanwhile, Sarah's father realizes that she is not in her room despite his warning. Dawn considers Sarah to be a problem. The next morning, when Sarah comes home with her boyfriend, her father notices them. Dawn and Sarah argue, and Dawn tells her to obey his rules. While Sarah is discussing her plans to leave home at 18 and travel the world after finding a job with her sister and mother, Dawn hears their entire conversation as he stands outside the door. Dawn later goes to the basement and pushes the bookshelf aside, revealing a secret door behind it. 3 months later, Sarah graduated. Sarah's mother tells her that her father is spending too much time in the basement. On the same day when Irene goes shopping, her sister is also not at home. Dawn asks Sarah to help him to move a box to the basement. Dawn pushes the bookshelf aside, and Sarah is surprised to see the secret room. Dawn takes her to the secret room, and when she asks about the room, Dawn tells her that the previous owner built this bomb shelter during the war. Dawn locks Sarah in the room. Sarah screams in panic and tries to shout for help, but unfortunately, no one can hear her as the shelter is soundproof. Sarah tries to open the door with the security code, but after 3 failed attempts, the lights go out and the ventilation stops, making it difficult to breathe. Her mother and sister are worried about her, so they call the police when they can't find any information about her from her friends. On the 4th day, Dawn goes to the basement, and Sarah tries to escape by pushing him, but she can't open the second locked door. Dawn forcefully drags Sarah back. Sarah asks Dawn why he is doing this to her, and Dawn said it is consequences of her disrespect towards him, and now she will have to earn everything she gets. Dawn brutally beats Sarah and also takes advantage of his own daughter. The police arrive at Sarah's home to investigate. Dawn informs the officer about his daughter's plans to travel the country, but her mother insists that Sarah wouldn't leave without saying goodbye, especially before her 18th birthday. The officer fills out a missing report and explains that they can't do much because she is 18. They decide to wait for Sarah, hoping she will contact them. Chris, who is also worried about Sarah, visits her house. Dawn lies and says that she ran away with her childhood neighbor, Steve. Sarah has now been locked up for 21 days, and it's her 18th birthday. Dawn forces Sarah to put on a red dress, gives her a birthday cake, and asks her what she wants. She expresses her desire to be released, but he tells her it's too early. Then she asks for a TV, and he tells her she has to earn it. She then requests a clock, and he agrees, asking her to come closer. Unfortunately, it is highly likely that she experiences further assault. On day 38, she creates a weapon out of a food can and attempts to attack Dawn but fails again, which results in Dawn beating and harassing her once more. Time passes. It has been almost a year since her captivity, and she is pregnant. Her water breaks, and with the help of a pregnancy book, she gives birth to her first child alone. She names her child Marie. 4 years later, Sarah is raising her daughter, and she is also pregnant again. Dawn has gotten a promotion and tells her that he is going to have a new office. Sarah asks him whether he could release them, to which he responds angrily and leaves her. Upstairs, he goes to have dinner with Amy and Irene, where Irene requests to hire a private investigator to find Sarah, but he gets angry and refuses. Later, he gives a TV as a Christmas present to Sarah. Now, it has been 7 years since her captivity. Sarah has given birth to a son named Michael, and they are all living in the basement. The daughter, Marie, seems to be sick, and Dawn provides some pills, but she demands that Marie needs a doctor, but Dawn just leaves. One night, to put Marie to sleep, Sarah tells her a story about a princess who loved a prince, but her father cut off her wings and locked her up. When Marie asks about the prince, she tells her he might still be looking for her. The scene shifts to Chris outside Sarah's house, where he meets Amy. When Chris asks about Sarah and Steve, Amy tells him the truth, realizing that Dawn lied to Chris. While describing Dawn's personality and behavior, she suggests that Dawn might have done something to her. To pass the time, Sarah creates imaginary adventures to play with the kids. Back at the house, Amy and Irene confront Dawn about lying to Chris. As a result, they start fighting. Irene becomes angry and leaves, breaking some things in the process. Meanwhile, Dawn accidentally leaves the keys on the chair. Amy picks them up and goes to the basement to look for any clues, but Dawn catches her and takes his keys back. They fight, and Amy blames him for Sarah's disappearance. Sarah has her third baby, a boy named Thomas. Due to the limited space in the room and her inability to care for another child, she convinces Dawn to leave the baby on the doorstep with a note, asking her mother to take care of the newborn baby. Dawn leaves the baby for Irene to find. However, Irene fails to notice it. But Dawn discovers a smaller note. Sarah had left a note, asking her mother to call the police as she was trapped in the basement. This led to Dawn harassing Sarah once again. 14 years have passed in the basement. The children, Marie and Michael, are growing up. They have social anxiety from being locked in a basement their whole lives. One day, when Sarah sees Dawn showing interest in Marie, Sarah tells Dawn to leave her. In response, Dawn turns off the ventilation fan as punishment, sitting upset in the corner for air. Marie tells her that she wants to go outside of this room. Throughout the conversation, we come to know that she doesn't know about Dawn and Sarah's relationship. She thinks that Dawn is her father, and Sarah should give her a divorce after she gets released. She doesn't know how horrible the situation they are in really is. It has now been 17 years since Sarah was in the basement. Thomas has now grown, and his grandmother is crying in remembrance of his mother, telling him about her. On that day, it was raining heavily. In the basement, Sarah notices a leak in the ceiling. She gets up on the cupboard and starts digging it out with a spoon. Sarah spends all night digging. She is also pregnant again. Digging leads to opening a hole in the garden, and then she flashes a light signal for help. A man sees the flash, but instead of checking the source, he rings the doorbell and notifies Dawn about it. Dawn angrily goes downstairs and beats his pregnant daughter very brutally. Beating her like this causes her to miscarry, and she gives birth to a dead baby, whom Dawn buried in the backyard. Now it has been 18 years in the basement. Dawn comes to the basement, and Sarah asks him about Thomas. Dawn says he is doing well and will play football and baseball. Marie and Michael ask Dawn when they will get out of there, and Dawn replies, it all depends on their mother. If she learns to behave herself, they will all be set free. After Dawn leaves, Marie and Michael treat Sarah very disrespectfully, blaming her for their captivity and bombarding her with numerous questions. Unable to answer their questions, Sarah becomes annoyed and enraged. She starts breaking things and throwing tables, and after exhaustion, she falls to the ground with memories of Chris and their happy moments. Her children put a blanket on her, clean the room, and put everything back. When she wakes up, they apologize to her. Now Sarah has told them that since they are now old enough, she can reveal the truth she has been hiding from them for many years. She tells them that the bedtime princess story she used to tell them is her own story, and Dawn is not only their father but also her father. Hearing all this, both are shocked and panicked, and Marie falls from her chair. She calms them down and tells them she loves them so much. Dawn is the only one to blame. A year later, when Dawn comes down to the basement and insults Sarah about her appearance, which causes Michael to attack Dawn, Sarah stops her son, and Dawn leaves. Above ground, Dawn isn't doing so great either. He constantly fights with his wife, gets fired from his job, and faces foreclosure on his house. The condition of the house starts to worsen. Dawn has difficulty paying the expenses for so many people, so he tries to kill Sarah and her children by pumping polluted air from the car into the ventilation system. However, he fails as Thomas catches Dawn in the garage and questions his grandfather about what he is doing. Dawn tells him he is checking how many miles the car can go. Dawn has a change of heart and decides not to kill them. He goes to the basement to check on them, and we see that they are okay and still sleeping. Now it has been 20 years in the basement. Marie has breathing problems and suffers from severe asthma attacks that require medical attention. When Dawn arrives, Sarah begs him to take them to the hospital. At first, he refuses, saying she will tell anyone, but after she makes too many requests, he rushes them to the hospital. It is the same scene we saw at the start of the film. Doctors try to save Marie. Sarah is extremely worried about Marie's life and feels truly relieved when the doctors save her. A concerned doctor asks about Marie's medical history. When the doctor asks for a medical history, Dawn tells him that Marie is homeschooled and has only been treated with home remedies. Sarah looks tired and slowly scans the hospital, seeking a way out. Sarah asks him if she can go to the bathroom, but Dawn refuses to let her go. While Dawn is looking away, she spills water on the medical form and makes her way while he goes to get a new one. Sarah reaches out to the doctor and asks for help, leading to Dawn being caught by security guards. When Marie regains consciousness, Sarah tells her that Dawn has been arrested and they are now free. Here, the police are also rescuing Michael from Dawn's basement, and seeing him gasp for air. Irene and Thomas are shocked. Dawn is imprisoned for life. Scene shift to Marie, Michael, and Thomas playing while Sarah is sitting with her mother and sister. Chris comes up with his motorcycle and takes Sarah for a walk. He feels sorry for not trying harder to find her and believing in her father's story. They talk about their teenage plans for the future, and Chris gave her a pink helmet that he had bought her when he was 18 years old. Then they go for a ride together. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.